efficiency plan. Those three got approved also. So they approved everything except the note policy. They tabled that for clarification on what exactly is the replacement policy for what NOPE would be on project cost overruns. Any questions?
Yeah, I'd like to know if you've seen a representative from Monument on the board recently. It would be Mayor Kaiser.
I have not.
Okay.
Not since Pamela was here, I think.
Right. So, yeah, I don't recall. Jessica would know. Honestly, I don't recall during introductions Monuments rep being there.
Does it have to be the mayor?
It does not. It can be whoever the
It has to be appointed.
somebody appointed, right?
And let you know.
Yep. Exactly. Send a letter, and it'll be whoever that is.
All right.
It'd be wise to have
And a second.
A second
Yeah,
person, a backup.
Principal and a backup. So.
I have a question. I didn't memorize our agenda for the last month, but we talked about some amendment, some funding about studying I-25 south of Colorado Springs.
Oh.
What happened with that?
That is, the board, that's the other thing, is the board released that proposal for public comment. So there's, it's a two-part. Right now, the way the previous discussion went, there was $1.5 million for operational improvements of I-25. The proposal is, in lieu of that, is $1 million to do design of a segment whose boundaries I will escape me, on South I-25, and then to do a PEL study for the remainder to widen it also. So that is out for 30-day public comment right now.
Still focused on I-25?
Yep, both, yeah. It's, instead of doing an operations, it's doing PEL and a design, two separate projects, one for $1 million, one for $500,000.
Okay, any other questions? All right, item number 6. The FY 2017 to 2022 TIP Amendment number 5. Kevin?
Good afternoon, Kevin Reyes, Transportation Planner here with PPACG. So today I'm going over TIP Amendment number 5, the 2017-2022 TIP. So TIP Amendment 5 is coming to us from the City of Colorado Springs along with CDOT. They're both working together on a project, the US 24 PWQ Pond project. This project consists of design and construction of an extended detention basin located between the south bank of Fountain Creek and the US 24 west of Ridge Road in Colorado Springs. The detention basin is going to be collecting water from the drainage to the south via two proposed 36-inch culverts aligned under the US 24 on the west side of the Ridge Road intersection. The water will discharge from the basin into Fountain Creek through an outlet structure and in high flow events through an overflow wire located on the north side of the detention basin. And so CDOT is going to be putting $2,750,000 towards this project. And then City of Colorado Springs is going to be putting $160,000 of in-kind for this project as well. So that's everything for TIP Amendment number 5. So any questions on that?
I have a question. Obviously, that intersection is dangerous.
Mm-hmm.
Do you know, and I know there's quite a bit of right-of-way, like a diamond interchange was planned. Do you know if this project interferes with the potential to make that intersection wider?
I'm not sure about that. Wendy, do you know anything about it
I do not either, but we're only the funding source. This is a competitive program, so it's not CDOT involved in the project at all.
Okay.
CDOT's just providing the funding.
We're just the funding source.
Yeah.
Okay. But, I mean, they're not going to build it within your right-of-way?
I have no idea.
Oh, okay. Who would I contact about that?
This gentleman that's in the...
I can reach out to him and get back to you on that. You want to know if this project is going to interfere with CDOT's right-of-way?
Yeah, it's going to be in the right-of-way or...
Mm-hmm.
They wouldn't have awarded it if there was any issue with that.
I mean, that intersection is dangerous, so something eventually will be done there.
Yeah, I'll ask the, I think his name is Tim. I can ask him and get back to you on that.
Thank you.
Uh-huh.
Would anybody like to make a motion on this item?
I'll second.
All those in favor of this motion, please say aye.
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 Opposed? All right, thanks, Kevin.
Thank you.
Item number 7, long-range transportation plan goals. Jennifer?
Good afternoon, Jennifer Valentine, Transportation Planner with PPACG. So in the memo you should have in front of you for Agenda Item 7, it's titled Long Range Transportation Plan Goals. I have listed the 13 goals that were approved as part of our last long-range plan, so the 2040 plan. So what we're proposing to do is to release this set of 13 goals to the public for public comment, and the way we propose to do that is through social media like Facebook ads, our Facebook page, Twitter, direct mailings, mailing lists that we had from the last plan, things like that, via a survey to get input on whether these 13 goals are still relevant, so an opportunity to comment on the goals as well as to add any that people feel may be missing. Another note, so internally staff went through an exercise. We took actually I'll tell you how we did it. So we printed out the goals from the last 4 sets of plans, so encompassing the last 16 years, cut them all out in little squares and put them in piles to determine where there was overlap between the plan goals, and thankfully there was a lot of overlap. All of the 13 here had at least, one thing in the pile, and then the other one, the main thing that stuck out was that in some past plans there had been a non-motorized specific goal that didn't make the cut last time for one reason or another, so that's definitely something that's going to be up for discussion. But basically the first thing we want to do is just take these back out to the public, get their opinion, and then early next year, probably February or March, bring what we've heard back to the committees and then have discussions with the TAC and the CAC and then ultimately take whatever we come up with to the board. So what we're asking for today is just to release these 13 goals for public comment with an extra sort of fill in the blank to anything.
Are there any questions? Brandy?
You said you had a mailing list. Is that email or is that hard copy mail?
It's mostly email. Yeah, we have a database of emails that we collected during the last cycle. I imagine we will have, so like I said, it'll be a survey and we'll have print copies available that we can give to different offices, and we can always mail to people on request.
I'm wondering why we are having a discussion and a TAC, sort of workshop, or not necessarily a workshop, but a discussion of the goals before we put them out for public comment.
They've been approved by the board. Our expectation is when we get the comments back, then that's when we'll have the workshop of the goals based on public comments and any other information that comes forward. Start with what's already adopted.
I was sort of under the assumption we'd have the discussion first before it went out.
So.
Well, we talked about both ways and thought it would be beneficial for the committees to have the benefit of hearing what the public said. I mean, ultimately, it is going to be a workshop kind of deal with the TAC, and so that'll be the refining process, because there might be 30 things from the public, and then the TAC and the CAC will help us get back down to a reasonable number.
Sorry.
Like 14 or 15.
My thoughts on that 14 is too many. So I would have liked to have seen less go out to the public, but and to have that conversation first. But there we are.
I have a couple questions, too. So if we start with these 13, and not knowing where the public process is going to take us, will these all meet the federal requirements of what we need to look for? Okay, we're still...
That's an excellent question. Yes, when we do meet the new regs with those goals.
Okay.
Because there's 7 or 8 categories, and we cover them all. So.
Okay, all right. My other question, Jennifer, in the background here, I'm just repeating what you just said. You looked at the 4 previous plans and everything, there was some cover between all the other plans, but the air quality conformity and alternative modes was left out. But we have goal 4 and 13, current goal 4 and 13 kind of cover intermodal or non-motorized, right? Alternative modes, and 13 kind of covers air quality. I mean, is that?
I think the goal we had in there before was very specific to conformity requirements, which is no longer applicable for this region. You're right. I mean, it is related, but I think we just had one before that was very specific to conformity. I would say number 4 is sort of general, modes and accessibility for everyone, but I think the item that's been in previous plans specifically said multimodal or ped bike or even transit.
Mm-hmm.
And I know there's interest in having that kind of language back in.
I think this time around there's going to be a lot of comment on alternative modes and transit and
Yeah, that's what we're expecting.
non-motorized. Okay. All right. Thank you.
Mhm.
Would anyone like to make a motion on this item, please? To release for public comment.
I'll move the document be released for public comment.
Second.
All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you.
Thanks.
Item number 8, I-25 Monument to Castle Rock widening resolution.
That's-
You missed that part.
So so the board approved that one, but in its place, sorry, I guess it's number 9, is the note policy. And because this has sort of happened yesterday, we don't have a full memo, but what I'm going to do is go to the board packet so that we can see we can start where they were. And they had a couple of questions, board, 2016, December, PDFs. It was note policy, attachment, that's one. Yep, so what I did based on the discussion of at yesterday's board meeting, I have some questions that I think the board would like answered in what we bring back to them. I'll just read through the questions first, and then we can go from there. First one is, when can project sponsors come forward for additional funding? Is there some sort of trigger, percent over budget, or just any time? Should there be a call for funds, or should it be a first come, first serve? So should there, once a year, we say, okay, if a project's over budget, let us know, or twice a year, or should it just be when you realize you're over budget, you come forward? Where should the funds come from? From currently programmed project, or should we create a set aside of funds? That's what CDOT does, is they have a contingency fund set aside that they can draw down against when their project's over budget. If program projects are where the additional funds should come from, who gets to pick which project? Should it be the lowest scoring project that would have not made it in next, or should it be from the same entity? If it comes from the same entity, what do you do if that entity doesn't have another project or doesn't have enough funding to get it? So those are just questions that sort of a free flow set of questions that I came up with.
Can you say the last one again?
Well, I guess it's a sort of a tiered. Where should the funds come from? Should they come from a program project or a set aside, a contingency fund? If they come from a programmed project, who picks which project? Where do they come from? Should it be the lowest scoring project, the one that would have gotten bumped out? Or should it be from the same entity that needs money, should it come from one of their projects? If it comes from the same entity's project, what do you do if they don't have a project or enough money to get those additional funds? So
my motion last month was that we recommended was to adopt CDOT's cash management advance policy in replacement of the NOPE, and that project sponsors have the ability to rescope future projects to free those funds up to pay for
And that,
ones we're
and the rescoping, actually, what do we do if most rescoping would be a reduction in scope, and so that is changing how a project would score. And I'm not sure that is how, what do we do then when we start messing with what a project would have scored then? It's a bait and switch on the scoring. So, but yeah, so CDOT does, what their cash management does is they can spend money for the next 4 years, and they have, when they have project cost overruns, they use their contingency fund for that. So they have so they have both a contingency fund set aside, and then they can, in addition, spend money anytime in the next 4 years. That next 4 years is a great, we tried to do that in the 13 to 16 tip, because then you don't, what that would allow is taking money from a project, and you can just take it out. You don't have to then shuffle projects, shuffle projects around to get the right money in the right year. That eases that tremendously. So that is a great idea. Yes, Wendy?
That's not true. The only time that you get TC money is like if there's a large project, like your I-25 North widening project, because of the extenuating circumstances. That would have been a case for TC money, but a normal, run-of-the-mill, everyday regional projects such as surface treatment or bridges or anything that we have going with RPP, that if it's something that we're doing the work on, we take it from the next project. Something gets cut, something
Okay.
gets delayed, something gets moved. So and it only works, the cash management process only works through the construction process. So as Mark alluded to yesterday, when he was sitting here at the board meeting, and he was asked some questions, he was talking about the fact that we have to create a drawdown schedule. So what that means to each of the local entities, if you are planning to adopt cash management the way we do cash management, you have to have your IGAs will eat you alive, because anytime you have to make an adjustment to the IGA, it has to go back and be revised, and you have to go through the whole process again to add money back into the IGA. And you'll have to do all the design work basically on your own. All the design has to be done up front so that you know how to populate that drawdown schedule. And it's not a process that local projects can take on. I can't see poor Bob here doing this with his sidewalk project. Bob's going to have to do the same amount of work in his sidewalk project that we do in Cimarron. And that's not necessarily where we need to go. So what Mark Andrew alluded to yesterday is coming up with some kind of a hybrid process. And in order to do that, it's going to take some conversation. It's going to take some meeting of the minds with the folks out of Denver also to make this work. And I know that Michael has some comments to add to this conversation as well. Right, Michael?
I do, unless you cover them before I
No,
get
go
it.
ahead.
Well, what I wanted to reiterate was what we briefly talked about last month when this topic came up. And as soon as we left that meeting, I immediately went and spoke with our OFMB folks, and told them that the topic had come up again, and it was overdue to have a conversation about it. And really where that conversation went was that cash management from CDOT's perspective, it isn't just a simple concept, but entails a whole lot of different practices, and it may, from tax perspective, it may seem a simple question to ask, can Pikes Peak exercise this or that, but they really want to understand in detail, like get an example of what does Pikes Peak really want to be able to do. And so we were ready to have that conversation. We're hoping to have that conversation if everybody can get to the statewide MPO meeting in January. And, Craig, when you come, if you can just come with sort of hard examples that will help facilitate a conversation, then we can identify more clearly what can and can't be done, what the limitations are, and what have you. And then I think it's just best to go from there. When we have a common understanding, then we can all talk about what options there are or if there's roadblocks.
I would add Wendy's concern of rescoping a project and changing the IGA.
Yep.
Because it will change your IGA.
So before we get too far, why are we getting rid of the no policy? there something that I missed as to why this came up to remove the policy?
The
Well-
TAC proposed getting rid of the policy, starting about 5 months ago, started a discussion on it.
Okay, so what was the why?
It was basically due to the crazy cost increases that we've been seeing in construction projects over a very short period of time. Last year, it's basically pretty much all the entities went to the board and said, you know, this money that we had budgeted and planned for these, it was probably about, 9-10 projects. It was no longer doable based on the bids that we were getting back. And so we went back and took an entire year of TIP funding and reallocated it to those projects to add additional money because they were no longer feasible because of the 30% cost increases that we had seen over the last couple of years.
Those projects had been scoped like, several years in advance of before it came up in the tip. So
Yeah, and that's not to speak for you all, that because we're calling for projects in the 5th and 6th year out, it's really hard for you all to come up with a accurate cost estimate 5 and 6 years out.
and we do put contingencies in, but obviously they weren't high enough.
And we're also generally coming up with those cost estimates at a planning level cost estimate, and then we'll get into the design and we'll see what actually, needs to happen as we start designing it and realize that it's a completely different animal than we were dealing with in theory 5 years earlier.
And MPOs, there's around the country, this is an issue. There's a handful of ways. Some entities require, or some MPOs require full design before you can apply. That's sort of, don't apply unless you've got it designed. Others don't call in the 5th and 6th year. Some of them only call for 2 years of projects, and they're calling for the 3rd year of the project, 3rd year of the TIP. So there's just, a lot of different ways that this issue is dealt with around the country. So.
Were all of those options discussed, or was the only option discussed getting rid of the note policy?
I don't really, we discussed a lot of different options, but, so.
I'm just trying to figure out how we got here.
Yeah, there was some over the 5-month period, yes.
We hashed everything out, and getting rid of the policy was the best option that the TAC felt.
Well, I think the programming of 2 or 3 years out only in the tip is kind of a new concept.
And I would say the board would be more resistant to that, I think, than the staff would, because they like to see their projects in the TIP. That's my take on it. So.
And so, Brandy, that's, that kind of started with the TAC. The TAC wanted to relook at this policy, but the CAC last month, they decided to leave it alone. So that's where a lot of the discussion happened yesterday at the board meeting. You had the TAC saying one thing and the CAC saying another. And, the board often likes to have consistent recommendations from both committees. So it was just send it back and have everybody look at it again.
And what was the CAC's reasoning for keeping the policy?
Because it's worked every time an entity has needed money, they've come forward and been awarded money.
Yeah, they didn't seem to think that a fix was needed for something that wasn't really broken, since, you can get a waiver through the board, and it's happened many times before. It's been handled, so they didn't see the need or the urgency to scrap it.
Did the TAC present to the CAC, or how was the CAC brought into the loop?
They had a memo that came through.
Was there a human being that came through, or just?
I actually wasn't at that CAC meeting.
You were the human being?
I was a human being.
Were they receptive? Were they confused as to why you were bringing this up? Do you remember?
Yeah, they were both. Some people were confused as to why this was brought up, but some people were receptive. They didn't unanimously vote to keep it. There was 2 people against it. One of them was a woman who works for a consulting firm, so she has had some experience with it. But everyone else more or less thought that it should be kept alone. So.
Trying trying to get the CAC on board, or the board on board, or both?
The board would like clarification as to what, if we get rid of the note policy, what do we have in its place for cost overruns? Because elimination, you got to have some policy, some procedure that you go through for those funds. So what is the alternative proposal to the current note policy?
I have a question. I don't even understand why that is an issue, because as long as you're going through, getting pass-through money through CDOT, I could see if they were totally local projects or RTA projects, something along those lines. But since we're talking federal money, the IGA that each of the local entities has to sign, they make a commitment that says that if there's any cost overruns, it belongs to the local entity. And they sign that document. So there really is no, if the board were, if they were to bring this issue back to the board and the board said, no, we don't have any extra funding that we can allocate to this project, or no, this is not something we support, we're not going to allocate more money, the local agency is still on the hook for building the project, covering the difference from the bid to their estimate. And if they can't do that, then their only other option at that point is, one, they'd have to be able to scale back, like we talked about, or two, they'd have to give the money back.
This is between the programming and the IGA. When they realize, they get into it, it's in the tip, but they haven't got the IGA yet, and they realize, wow, we're 30% short. So this is the policy to cover that gap.
But from a on the ground piece, as soon as, when they go to add, if it comes back heavy, they're on the hook for it.
Right. But this is the policy to cover the between time, between getting awarded in 6 years.
We're on the same page and that we understand where that is going.
Yep.
They're saying that rescoping it or downscoping it.
Would affect scores, and then it gets into like a bait and switch sort of deal.
Well, are any of the options, could that entity take program funds from another project?
Yeah, that's.
Types of funds and
you do that, but then do you take that, that gets into where should the project come from? So if it's coming from another program project, how do you determine that? Is the next lowest scoring project? So like, if El Paso County had the lowest scoring project, City of Colorado Springs went over budget, does City of Colorado Springs get to knock down the lowest scoring project El Paso County, or does it come from a City of Colorado Springs project? If it comes from a City of Colorado Springs project and there's enough money, that's great, but what if, it's Palmer Lake, they're over budget, they don't have another project, where does the money come from then? So.
And we're there.
Yeah.
I think a lot of those issues we've dealt with before. We've traded projects, I've pushed one off, you've moved one up, somebody else has freed up money for a smaller entity. I think
We've dropped projects before. So.
What we need to do is collaborate and come to a consensus as to how to handle that.
And can't we keep doing that? We can keep doing that without fooling with the note policy? I mean, it's worked in the past. We've worked internally and cooperated. Soon we continue to do that, but does it really warrant scrapping the note policy?
I'm not going to answer that question, but I will answer the collaborating process. The last time that we all collaborated and came up with the tip, we basically got our hands slapped by staff and proposed other policies to deal with us not being able to collaborate on a tip in the future.
Well, the hand slap was because the projects didn't come from the plan. So.
It was collaborative, it was consensus-based, and that is a big part of what an MPO should be facilitating.
Yeah. And now we're into the whole, one additional complicating factor that, and Federal Highway's not on this call, right? So,
No.
Is the whole performance-based system. And we have to pick the projects that perform best.
We don't have to pick the ones that perform best. We
Well,
have to
unless-
pick the ones that have a measure and that we show progress towards. We do not have to pick the best
Right.
ones.
Well,
It's not in federal regs.
Except that you have that flexibility as long as you're still meeting your goals. So as long as the project you're picking.
We're making progress towards. We don't have to pick the absolute highest ones.
As long as you're still achieving the goals.
And towards those with the collaborative-based projects that we selected, even though staff didn't like that process.
And I think that's why having a call for projects every year for the long-range plan will help us with meeting the goals, the
Yep.
federal goals, and also with us having to meet our political priorities. Thank you.
And in the defense of the local agencies, there were some other issues that came up with some of those projects that had detrimental flaws that they couldn't go forward. So there were a few of them that were taken out of the mix completely to begin with because we had an issue with environmental, we had some
Something.
issues with different pieces and parts of.
Right away or something.
Yeah. And so with that being said, those were also taken into consideration as part of that group that was traded out. So it wasn't just willy-nilly to that degree. There were some justifications.
I think there's kind of a larger issue or concern at hand too, because you look at the projects in the 2040 plan, and they're huge projects, big high-dollar projects that we can't fund, with these little piecemeal things. But they have to be in the long-range plan, otherwise
You can't even do
we can't
NEPA.
get them done.
Right.
But we can't get them done because they're too large for us to pursue federal funds for. So there's, that's a problem that I don't have a solution for, but it's like.
We call it the tyranny of large projects because, they take such big chunks of money, and you can't even start doing some of the studies, the NEPA, unless they're funded in your plan. You fund them in the plan, you can't get anything else in. It's tyrannical.
Yeah. So I think that's an issue that we can't solve here. But I would hope the CAC and the board would understand, has an understanding of those are the type of things that we have to deal with as staff in trying to get projects done and scoping projects and just real day issues we have with project implementation.
I think that's an excellent point. I don't think there's a huge understanding of the process that we go through, the issues that we face, the changes in the volatility in the construction market. I don't think there's a lot of understanding at the PAC level of those issues. And that's probably why they didn't like it before, and we're looking at the ground level of trying to get projects done, figuring out how do we do it.
Right.
Okay.
Okay, let me try to maybe move the conversation on. I think what would be useful is if we had an email put together that has some of those examples of how other MPOs deal with this. That would be useful to have those questions and issues laid out so that we can sort of at an individual level come up with some answers to these. I'd like to have my construction expert with me when I do this, and I don't have her here right now.
Love to be here.
And she would love to be here, and she's probably not happy she's missing this. So I'd like to maybe get some of this stuff documented, put it together, and then have internal discussions and maybe bring it back at our next
Month,
meeting.
yeah, because yesterday to today is not a lot of time
Right,
to.
I don't think this is an issue that we have to deal with this month. It's just an issue we need to figure out in the future.
Agreed.
Yeah,
And the more time you take to work on it and collaborate and come up with a good process that's defensible, the board will accept the terms that you're putting forward. And we can all live with it. That's the most important part.
Let's do it right and not try and do it quick.
Correct.
yes,
Is there a way
And to add on to that, if we get a chance to talk statewide MPO, we'll get to talk with, the OFMB folks and get some clarity from that. That happens not till almost the end of January, so it's actually, I think, after,
It is after the next
PAC
TAC
meeting.
Before statewide.
So timing-wise, we kind of want to think about discussing this through January and February before it should go back to Pikes Peak's board.
It could certainly be a discussion item for next month and then brought back again. I don't think we're going to solve this all in.
Yep.
Yeah, it's worth taking a few months to get it right. Yep.
Is there a way for the TAC to talk with the CAC?
Yeah, we can do joint meetings, or you can you can create anything that you want distributed to the CAC. We can put it in their packet.
Nice to have a face-to-face conversation of what people have actually gone through to explain it.
We've done that a couple ways in the past. I think the way we find that
Workshop.
tends to work the best is we'll sort of nominate somebody or volunteer somebody to go and talk to the CAC during their meeting, rather than trying to coordinate two giant meetings.
It's probably been 4 years ago since the last time we had a joint TAC and CAC meeting, and it went poorly.
But I know Brian and myself have both gone
Yep.
and presented to them certain issues as they've.
Yep. And we can put together stuff to supplement an attendance in person, make sure that there's something they can read ahead of time too. So,
It's just nice to have somebody to answer questions.
yep. Okay.
Sounds good.
So tabling this till next month. And staff will put together, we'll send out the questions and some samples of how other entities deal with cost overrun issue.
Sounds good. Thank you.
Would you like a motion?
Yeah.
I think we need to vote. I'm going to move that we table this item, gather some additional information, and continue discussion.
I'll second.
Second.
Okay. Thanks, Brandy. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right, thank you. Okay, item number 10, officer elections for 2017.
Nominate Brian as chair.
I'll second that. If you're interested.
Sure, yes, yeah, thank you. So everybody will just move up a slot. You'll be first vice chair. Oh, wait a second. I nominate Victoria for
I knew that was going to come back
first,
and bite me.
first vice chair.
Second.
All right. All those in favor?
Wait, we got to give a second. You need a second.
Okay.
Second.
Yeah. You going to be our second chair?
Oh, you can't have a first without a second?
No,
Second.
We need a second vice chair.
Second.
We need a nominee for that.
I will nominate Brandy to be our second vice chair.
I'll second the motion.
All right, so we have chair, first vice chair, and second vice chair, all nominated. Any other discussion?
Can you ask if anybody's feeling left out or would like to be in? No? Nobody jumping over there.
I hurt feelings.
Checking.
I think Michael, oh, he hung up.
All those in favor, please say aye.
You want me to run the meeting, Craig?
Any opposed?
It might get kind of interesting.
Okay. The 2017 slate has passed. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
And I'd like to take the time to welcome Jennifer, but also thank her for her past 2 years of leadership. It was a very fast 2 years. And,
Sorry I couldn't be here. I was tied up in another meeting. Yeah, go ahead. Keep going.
Item number 11, member entity announcements.
I will start quick. We are advertising for a planning technician, so if you know anybody in that sort of level, please let them know that PPACG is looking for a planning tech.
Anybody else?
Note that our major transportation corridor plan passed by our planning commission and was consented upon by our board. We also passed an update to the road impact fee program, and the board passed about a 10% increase in.
Excellent. Congratulations. Good project.
I'll just add that our Fontaine Avenue project, which is partially funded with federal funds, is getting underway. We're very excited about that. So appreciate everybody's help on that project.
What does that project entail?
Sidewalks on Fontaine Avenue, or Fontaine Boulevard, sorry, down in the Security Whitefield area. Almost Main Street, all the way to about Easy Street to the old space.
Okay. Nothing closer to Powers and the stretch where it's unimproved?
Not yet. we've done a lot of good coordination with Mountain Metro Transit, and we actually did an early install of the bus shelter.
Great.
And
Another part of town that really needs it.
I'd just like to congratulate Brian as he takes over the chair position. I know he'll do a great job representing us all.
Thank you.
That's all I have.
I just wanted to let you all know we're going to be having public meetings in January for our 2017 service changes. We're trying to do, it's been a pretty furious past couple of years. We've done a lot in the last couple of years with spring and fall service changes, and we're trying to go to one service change a year. So we're looking to implement most of the changes this coming fall. We need additional vehicles to add frequency, which we're planning to do on Route 25 from the Citadel Mall north on Academy Boulevard up to the Voyager Parkway Transfer Center. So that's going to be our third corridor with 15-minute transit service. So we'll implement that on October 1st, and we'll have a few scheduling adjustments this spring on April 30th. And we're also, if you remember, a couple months ago, we did a tip amendment to rescope a previous TE grant that we got for our Route 6 service. We had money to add sidewalks and curb cuts on 4th Street, just north of Fillmore. And the route kind of deviates off of Fillmore, goes up El Paso, 4th Street, and Hancock. And we'd like to operate on Fillmore. So we've been doing a categorical exclusion process. We did the tip amendment, but now we're going to do the public process as part of our January public meetings to make sure that the neighborhood is good with that. And once that is done, then we can continue with design. We're going to have to redo Fillmore Street, which is in horrible shape in that area, so there's no sidewalks. Businesses are into the right-of-way, so it's going to be a lot of coordination, but it's another step that we need to do to ensure that we can rescope that project. So depending on how that goes, if the neighborhood wants to keep it where it is, we may have to do another tip amendment to put the project back to the way it was. So I don't know a better way of handling that, and maybe we should have just processed ahead of the tip amendment, but there are like 3 or 4 moving pieces, and we'll see how it goes. So it's going to be a multi-phased service change this coming year, but the proposal is kind of being reviewed through administration now, and there should be an announcement made by the end of this month, and we'll have the public meetings the 3rd week of January. So that was a really long member entity announcement. And I just wanted to say thank you all for being here, and I look forward to serving with you all, and have a great holiday season. And are there any other announcements? Items for future TAC meetings.
We have the approval of the November minutes, the NOPE policy discussion, a tip amendment, and likely something to do with the plan goals. We won't have, I don't know what we'll have there. That's what I have right now for next month.
May I suggest that, we have a resolution now in making I-25 our highest priority, but in 2012, we had a resolution that talked about several, and right now we have 23 priorities in this region, and I would suggest that maybe we start with we discussed that previously, but I really think that that's a great idea.
Yeah, the resolution that Rob's writing it right now says the number 1 priority is I-25. So then, come up with like the next.
Go along with that, I think we can do a secondary resolution.
yeah.
That would be my
Okay.
suggestion.
Okay, totally bring that back. Bulletin.
In that 2012 resolution, we had 2 or 3 top priorities. I mean, I-25 North can say that priority, but I think that, there was some discussion yesterday at the board meeting in regards to I-25 South, which is, I know, a very large concern to Mountain in this region.
Fort Carson.
especially Fort Carson, so I think we need to get that on the radar. So that one, I mean, I can think of several, but I think that might be something that we take on as a next step, is not just say I-25 is our top priority, but here's a few other, because I think that 2012 resolution served this organization and this region very well.
Yep.
So that would be my suggestion.
And Craig, I guess, so the 30-day public comment period for the goals will go from the January board meeting?
But I don't think we need to limit it to 30, because one of the things that in conversations, we need to get out more, so, and we want to have a good discussion on it. So we haven't, we are saying for 30-day discussion. I think we need to frame it. I just don't know how long it's going to be. Our schedule right now has the edit through, I want to say March or April.
Yeah, mid-March.
So-
Yeah, we're looking at February as
Because-
being the main push, and then we'll need a little bit of time to see what we hear.
That's good.
Because, yeah, we want to make sure we have good discussions on it. So,
Okay.
And we're also working with our new policy and communications and web person. They both have a lot of good ideas. So beginning of the year, we're really going to hit the ground running with this, assuming that the board releases it at their January meeting. And then it'll really be kind of late January, February into early March when we're actually going out to the public.
Okay, all right. Are you going to be doing any new strategies to get the word out to the public or to get input?
well, EG was not new. It'll be new for the long-range plan, but not new for the region. One of the things that was successful in our non-motorized plan was have a map, and you can put a dot down and say, here's the problem. We're also going to do a sort of an online survey. We looked at doing, you can buy email addresses from private companies. Actually, you can't buy them. You can have them send out emails for you. And we looked at that, there's 280,000 email addresses that we can have people send out for our region, but it's $20,000 to have 5 emails sent out to each one. Not sure that that's worth it, but so we are exploring. Jessica, our new Pulse Communications, has some ideas too. We just haven't sat down and figured out what they are. But yeah, we are looking. The map on the numbers plan was really successful, and then some online survey type stuff.
Okay.
More web-based. I will say that we are trying to be more electronic. We're trying the two philosophies: more electronic and going where people are already, not asking them to come to us because we don't matter in the big scheme of things. So in meetings or other things that are going on where other people are, we're going to try to glom on and be there. So.
And we just had an RFP out for an online web mapping tool. We received a couple of responses, and just yesterday or the day before chose a consulting firm, and so we have a really quick turnaround for that. It's going to be beginning of February when that should be up and running, so we're hoping to use that for a lot of our public process. It's, drop a pin, make a comment, respond to projects on the map, really interactive.
Okay. Great.
Craig, we would have to check with our Highway Advisory Commission chair, but probably come and present the goals to the Highway Advisory Commission.
That would be awesome. So, and
Check and make sure we can't set their agenda there, set their
Right.
own. So we will check with them and see if they'd like to have that in January.
thank you, if you could.
Third Wednesday?
Yeah.
I think it's the third Wednesday.
That'd be perfect, because that's a week after the board will have released it. So that'd be perfect. Thank you.
And just one other question. The strategic plan that the organization is doing, do you anticipate any overflow or crossover with what
The
transportation program does or the long-range plan?
I expect there will be. We don't know what it is yet. The revised scopes we got back, the initial scope projects we got back were noticeably over budget. At the low end, a little more than double. At the high end, 8 times our budget. So getting those scoped back to what our budget is means that to get stuff done, it's going to go out more to the departments. So we don't know what that is going to be yet. The board has a committee or subcommittee that's going to be meeting to discuss that. But yeah, I fully expect there to be a strong overlap there.
All right, anything else? Motion to adjourn?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
All right,
Thank you very much.
thank you.
1 hour, nice.
Bye, all.
Merry Christmas, everybody.
Merry Christmas.
Likewise.
Thank you, Michael.
Bye, Michael.
The defund process, they're going to actually do a pretty good job. So we don't have any, sorry. I mean, thank you.